The NCAA National Championship Trophy, the ultimate prize. In 29 days, 68 teams will set their sights on the Lone Star State. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and this year's road to the Final Four leads to San Antonio. When it ends, a champion will be crowned on our sport's biggest stage. Hey everybody, I'm Adam Zucker, and welcome to the NCAA March Madness Men's Bracket Preview with Selection Sunday 4 weeks from tomorrow. It is great to be joined by my esteemed colleagues, Clark Kellogg, Seth Davis, and Jay Wright for our 9th Bracket Preview show. Hello, gentlemen. But the most important man in the room, we are thrilled to be joined by Bubba Cunningham, Athletics Director at North Carolina and Chair of this year's NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee. Under a month to the big Selection Sunday. What's been the hardest part so far?
Well, the selection and seeding is always going to be the hardest. But when I see the trophy and I listen to that music, it is absolutely fantastic. We're a month away. Can't wait to get started. And today will be a wonderful day as well.
Goosebumps. You guys excited?
Yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Very cool. Now, I know you only did the top 16 seeds this week. You'll obviously do the full 68 next month. There's always that question about comparing teams from different leagues, mid-major conferences to the power conferences. How are you guys planning on working through that with this cycle?
Boy, you're right. And we know this year we have a couple of extra metrics that we're using. We're using the WAB, which is wins against the bubble. And we have also 5 new committee members. So this past week, we've been practicing, trying to, get everybody used to what is the process? How do you seed? How do you select? How do you bracket? And we think we've had a really good week. You'll see where we are on the 16th today and look forward to the next month.
Love the addition of the WAB.
Yes, wins against the bubble.
I have to say first, thank you for chairing the committee, because one of the toughest jobs in America right now, if not being a president of a university, is being an athletic director. So you're doing it at North Carolina, and you're heading the committee. Thanks for that. With that said, was it a little bit easier with the top seeds this year because of the domination of the SEC? Did you have to get to spend a little less time at least figuring out the top 4?
Well, we spent a lot of time all over all the teams, but we wanted to make sure we got it right. And you're right, the SEC's had a phenomenal year, but a couple other leagues have had a great year as well. As you'll see, we'll have a number of teams from a couple of different leagues. But we want to make sure, regardless of the league that they play in, that we treat them fairly and we try to seed them appropriately.
Bubba, I will have comments and questions, but not right now. Let's get to it.
You want to get to it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
I saw Jerry Palm's bracketology a moment ago, and he'll be along with us in another half an hour. But without any further delay, let's begin the reveal, starting with the #1 overall seed from the selection committee.
Okay, the #1 overall seed for this year is Auburn. They'll be headed to the South, and they've had 13 Q1 wins against just 2 losses in Quad 1.
Easy
No
pick.
surprise there, guys, I don't think.
No, not only no surprise, but, Bubba, this is your 5th year on the committee. You've been a voting member, so you've been through the cycle a number of times. Can you remember, even at this stage of the process, a team separating itself from the rest of the field the way that Auburn has?
No, I really haven't. Of all of the voters in our group that were available to vote, they were the unanimous choice. So they are clearly our #1.
They're the team, guys, that can be dominant offensively and defensively. They can be #1 in both categories. As they're the #1 seed by far. But I even think defensively they've slipped a little bit. I think Bruce Pearl will get them back defensively by the time tournament.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when you look at most of the metrics, and I'm not a bracketologist, Seth does that, but Auburn was 1 or 2 in just about all of them. And then you look at how they performed and what you see in observation. This was a pretty clear overall #1 seed.
And a clear place to put them, as the #1 overall seed would naturally choose a path that would go to Atlanta, where the South region.
And they get the option to choose as the overall #1 seed if that is the case a month from now.
Yes, we've still got a long ways to go. And we got to get to the #2 overall seed. Kind of plays a role here. #2.
Yeah, the second #1 seed is Alabama, and they're headed to the Midwest region, and they've had an incredible year as well. They're 8-1 on the road, and they're 15-3 in quads 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah. And so that brings up the big question, because at 4 o'clock today, Auburn at Alabama.
Yeah.
Were they close enough to Alabama? Let's say we did this show tomorrow. If Alabama won, do you think if they won the game, could they surpass them as the overall 1 seed?
Well, I don't think any single game is going to make the difference. You know, right now we did have Auburn as the unanimous choice. So, yeah, Alabama, you know, they're going to play 2 more times. Yeah. And the Alabama schedule that they have in front of them is absolutely incredible. So the next month will really determine, you know, who's going to get the #1 overall seed.
And good chairman head.
Well, good answer. Good answer. It's the perfect answer, but it's also an important question because this is why this show is so valuable. It is significant because if you can be in the SEC and you're the #1 overall seed, Alabama would much rather be in the South where they can play in Atlanta than have to get shipped out to the Midwest or even possibly the West. So it's getting into the weeds, but that's the purpose of this exercise. It's pretty important.
Yeah, it is important, but I always think about where you play is important, but how you're playing and who you play is more important, particularly when you're on that 1 seed line.
Yeah, got to win a couple to get to those regions.
That's right.
Anyway. And those aren't the only 2 SEC teams thinking about trying to get to Atlanta, by the way. Yeah. But in the meantime, Bubba, who is the 3rd #1 overall seed? What's up?
I can't do it. I can't do it. I cannot do it.
He's taking his day job as the athletic director of North Carolina with him. It's a 4-letter word for some. 3rd #1 overall is Duke.
Well, it gets easier the more you say it.
I would love to say something good about him, but I can't.
Let me do it for you. I'll tell you. John Shire deserves so much credit because this is a great defensive team, as talented as they are, and they're all young. To get this many freshmen to defend at this level. And what I would wish for them is more close games because Con Knippel and Cooper Flagg need reps at end-of-game situations to be the go-to guys.
Coming right out of your mouth.
They're going to be the go-to guys in the tournament.
What you're thinking about as a coach. And I agree with you. But the point you make about them defensively, I think is a credit to their young guys because they get after it at that end of the floor, particularly Cooper Flagg.
And Duke has
fewer quad 1 opportunities in the ACC, though, so that could be a factor.
And a huge following in the Northeast. East Region games would be played in Newark, so that would be a huge one for Duke fans. The 4th #1 overall?
Yeah, the 4th #1 overall is Florida, and they'll be headed out west. And I'll tell you, between Florida and Duke, the only 2 that have beaten Auburn. Yeah. So they are in the mix for these 1 seeds.
Florida has some really good road wins recently at Auburn and then also at Tennessee. That tilt them the balance, maybe get them on the run line. Some people had them as a 2.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. That win over Auburn was probably a distinction. And, you know, I think Florida has just played exceptionally well as well, and I think they're in the right spot right now.
Yeah, they've got some good wins without key players, too, here recently. Florida has.
Exactly. At Mississippi State, at Auburn. I think it's a great call by the committee because I think that's the most dangerous team right now. If the tournament was right now, I think they're the most dangerous team in the country.
Yeah. Hardest part about putting these 4 on the board?
Trying to make sure you get the right ones there right now, and obviously we have 3 out of the SEC, which I know it's only happened a handful of times, and then we got to make sure we get them right because this will have a cascading effect to the rest of the bracket once you put so many teams from one league that high in the bracket.
Just to return to the point about that other team down on the bottom right for you. They're in the ACC. They're not going to have as many quad 1 opportunities. I know you don't want to forecast too much ahead, but could you envision a scenario where they still win a lot of games, if not all of them, but still get overtaken because of these 4 of these SEC teams that are playing a lot of quad 1 games?
It's possible. You know, they all have, you know, about 10 more games left, each of them, so a little less than that. And so we'll see how they do, plus the tournament. It's really too much speculation for me to try to make a guess of who could go up or who could go down. It's going to be who do you play and how'd you do?
Well, you'll have real games to help us figure it all out.
That's exactly right.
And by the way, I mentioned 2 of the regions. The West is San Francisco, the Midwest, Indianapolis this year to go with Atlanta and Newark. And we are just getting started. We have the 4 top seeds. We'll round out our Sweet 16 when the NCAA March Madness men's bracket preview continues. We continue the reveal with Bubba Cunningham, the chair of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Selection Committee, as we now go through the 2 seeds, sir.
So the first 2 seed is in the SEC, Tennessee, and they'll be headed out east. And I tell you, they've had 8 quad 1 wins. Their predictive metrics are fantastic, 10-5 in quad 1, quad 2. And probably the difference between Tennessee and Florida is probably Florida's win over Auburn.
So that's how close it was to
really
Tennessee
close.
being on that 1 line.
There's really 5 teams that were really highly considered for the 1 line, and Tennessee just happened to drop out. Have already gone head-to-head with Florida twice, and they split. So maybe they'll get to play again.
All right, trying to be a 1 seed for the first time ever. The second number 2 seed, 6th overall.
6th overall, Texas A&M, and they're going to head south.
Okay, all right, so another SEC team. 5 out of the top 6 are from the SEC.
That's impressive.
Not terribly surprising, though, based on how they
Very
played
impressive.
all season long.
And 7th overall?
7th overall is Purdue, and they're going to head to the West.
Yes.
The Midwest, apologies.
The Midwest, which will be in Indianapolis, right down the road. And so that's last year's national runner-up, Purdue, as a 2 seed.
So the number 2, the last one is Houston, and they're headed out west. And I tell you what, they have had a fantastic year as well, so they'll be fun to watch in the tournament.
Strong defensive team.
Yeah, no question. And, you know, some people might wonder, well, Houston's 6th in the AP poll. They're 3rd in the net. Why are they 8th on the seed line? Well, they got 5 quad 1 wins and 1 quad 2 loss. Purdue has 7 quad 1s.
Yeah.
A&M has 7 and Tennessee 8. And also, since I'm the resident bracket nerd on the set, why isn't Tennessee going to Atlanta at number 5? Because there's a rule that was put in place a few years ago. The overall 5 cannot be in the same region as the overall 1. So that actually benefits A&M geographically, but of course they got Auburn.
There you go. All right, let's continue now with the number 3 seeds, Bubba, going 9 through 12.
Okay, number 9 is Iowa State, and they're headed to the Midwest. We have number 10, Kentucky, headed out west. We have 11, Wisconsin, going south. And number 12, Arizona, is going to the east.
Wow, Arizona's come on strong.
But you look at all 4 of those teams, they've had some bumps, just some mild air turbulence, but they've proven that they're quality, and that looks like a well-balanced 3 line. Go back to the 2. There was really general consensus on the 1 line. Was that pretty much the case with the committee as you looked at the 2 seeds as well?
Yeah, the 2 and the 3, we did get the consensus on it. And if I can talk about the 3s, I mean, the 3s, the one with Kentucky and Iowa State, both some injuries there.
Yeah.
But we still think they're in the right spot because they had some difficulty early. But right now, we think we've got them in the right spot. Kentucky had great wins. They've beaten Duke, they've beaten Florida, and beaten Tennessee twice.
Yeah.
But they did have injuries in the middle, and same with Iowa State.
All right, we still got one more line to go here and some more work to do. We're going to put the finishing touches on the Sweet 16 as we move closer to the madness and another road to the Final Four paved with unforgettable moments. Oh, it was a magical night in the desert for UConn, becoming the first team as repeat national champs since the Florida Gators. But no mention of Dan Hurley's team yet as we continue the reveal. Bubba, you owe us the 4 seeds here.
Okay, 13 through 16. So number 13, Texas Tech. They're headed south. Number 14, Michigan is going west. 15, Kansas is going to the Midwest. And 16, St. John's is going east.
Ooh, and it's been a great year for them already. That would be a marvelous location for their fans. With the top 4 seeds in mind from each region, the committee then looks at balance. Did you have to make any adjustments to have balance between the 4 regions?
You're right. We did try to balance the region, and we actually switched Michigan and St. John's.
Ooh.
So it is what we do is what we can move them. As long as they stay on the same seed line, we're okay. We don't want to go up and down a line, but we can move them geographically to get a better balance with the top 4 seeds.
The bellman in my hotel here in New York will be happy. He's a St. John's fan sneaking looks at my notes.
You're not supposed to print it out, Jay. Don't print it out.
The Johnnies were.
That's right.
But I got to ask you, Bubba, I know.
What prompted you to print them?
I
do you
you know, I
think
like
is
to
gonna happen?
prepare.
Like a hard
Coach. Coach, I got to be prepared.
You can't read them off
know
your
that.
email?
I'm not smooth like
Okay,
you.
all right, okay, all right.
How you had to be pushed at that last spot with the Johnnies. Who else were you looking at that spot who almost snuck in?
You always are. And so Michigan State and Marquette are right there. I mean, Big Ten, Big East, 2 great teams having really good years. And it's a tough call when you get down. And, you know, every one between 16 to 17 and all the way down. We'll have the same problem when we get down to 68, 69, 70.
Yeah.
Well, no question, but I would just say that this is a pretty balanced bracket, and I don't think it's going to be much different than what the bracketologists have put together. So kudos to you and the committee for the work done at this stage as we get ready for what's going to be real in about 4 weeks.
Not that I look for controversy. But just to explain to people, when you talk about the balance, so you're adding up those numbers on the right for the overall, and then you compare them to the 4, and then you want to even it out. But what you just did was put St. John's in Newark, and now all the Red Storm fans are going to be there, and Tommy Lloyd has your cell number, so you may hear from him. So how does that conversation go, balance versus maybe giving someone a better home court advantage than they would have had in San Francisco?
We really try to balance. We try to be within 5 points, if you will, as far as your ranking goes. But, we're going to not move you off the seed line, so we're going to try to move you geographically. So that's where
competitive balance, and if you're focused on
wrong
where you
thing.
might be
That's right.
playing
Right.
versus who you're going to play and how you're playing, you're focusing on the wrong
Not
thing.
like coaches like to complain.
No, in 16, they moved us out of Philadelphia and sent us to Louisville because Carolina was the 1 seed in the East in Philadelphia, and it worked out pretty well. To Clark's point, as coaches, you can't get caught up. It's your matchup and how you're playing.
That's right.
That's what it's all
That's
about.
Right.
Yeah, and if you have to go far from home, fewer ticket requests.
There's some benefits.
Just
not a
don't
joke.
print the real bracket.
No, that's real,
That's
right?
not-
Yeah,
That's
don't
exactly-
print them on the selection
Yes,
show.
for sure.
Take
Yeah.
his phone.
You've made such progress in year 3. And then you just took a step back. That's okay. We still,
by the
we
way,
still got you, man.
You
We
do
still
have to
got
win a few games to play those games.
That's
too.
right.
So
There you
it's
go.
all
Right,
speculation.
exactly right.
One game at a time, one segment at a time. We love having you,
Yeah,
Bubba.
thank you,
Good job,
Bubba.
Safe
Tim.
travels back to Carolina.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well done.
Appreciate you
Appreciate it.
joining us, and we're going to look forward to seeing you in 4 weeks from tomorrow.